Hey everybody, it's Steve Burns back. So this is what you've been waiting for, adding the lighting details to our interior here as well as our exterior. So we were interested in starting off with the debris on the inside. So we want to make sure that we're going to be above the debris layer, but we're going to be behind this highlight layer that we created with this light blue coming across here. All right, so here we are. That's our light blue. I'm going to just target to make sure I'm in the right spot, and I'm going to add a layer just beneath it. And I'm going to alter this layer to a blend mode called overlay. Now the reason being is an overlay, this is a great dodging and burning technique. If you paint with black, things on beneath it is going to get darker. As you paint with white or brighter values, things above it is going to get a little bit brighter. So let me show you how it works. Now I'm going to get in a little bit closer here, and black is the foreground color, so I'm going to start to add black, and as I start to add it, things are going to get darker. It's going to especially affect those darker values a lot quicker. If I switch it, the X key, to white and start to paint, I can start bringing out details, and it's going to affect. Now this is going to be great for these little shiny pipes here, or what shine is left on them. I can just paint them all back on in these areas. And it's going to maintain the texture and the original quality that the photograph provided from the very beginning. Okay, so we pull this on back, and before and after, before and after. All right, so I'm going to target that, and I'm going to delete everything that I just did on there, because I want to think about the color of the shadow, the shaded light, just so that I don't have to actually move too far to get my color palettes. I'm going to create the color palette that I'm going to want to work with here. Make a brand new layer right above it, and my brush is already selected. I'm going to select kind of a darker blue for the foreground color. So I'm going to target the foreground color. And so that you don't have to go through that whole step, let's actually share with you a different way. Hit the I key on the keyboard. That takes you to the eyedropper. If I target this dark shading over here, it's going to give us that darker bluish type of a color. And if I hold down the Alt key and target another color, that's going to make it the background color. All right. So if I target this one, let's go ahead and go. Let's target that there. That's going to be the foreground color. Hold the Alt or Option key down. That's going to be the background color. So I'm going to target this background color, which I've already done. I'm going to take my brush, hit the B key, and I'm going to just lay that color down here. Now I made a brand new layer just for this. Okay. Now, I want the opposite of that color for the light, because usually whatever light source falls on your object, that's going to be the opposite of your shadow. So, or the shadow is going to be the opposite of the light source, because it's being, it's being absorbed. Now, if I duplicate that particular object, let's go to my L key for the lasso tool, V key for the move tool. If I duplicate it, let's move it on over. So I'm going to Alt and Shift, duplicate it there. Now I'm just going to lasso it one more time. I'm going to invert that. So if I hit Command I, that's going to be the color of our lighting. So let's actually test it out. So inside this structure, I've especially go to the lower section, it's going to be a little bit darker. There's going to be some areas over in here where underneath the pylons or the bridge, it's going to be a little darker. Some of the areas that's going to represent coming out toward the forefront is going to have a little bit more lighting on it. So actually, let's create that. So with the brush, hit the B key for the brush. And what I'm going to do is this, just to make it life easier. With the eyedropper selected, hold the Alt key, target it. Okay. That's the foreground color. Let's actually switch it here. We'll just make it easier this way and just use the eyedropper, target that one, switch it with the X key, target this one. All right. So, X key, foreground, background, foreground, background. Those are the colors you want to work with. So, hit the X. Let's start right down here. Hit the B key. And I'm working in a new layer. Let me target right beneath my color palette. And add one more layer. I'm going to call this one the Burn and Dodge. We're going to alter this to overlay. All right. Now, if I start to paint with that bluish darker color, we start to add in the color of our shadow. So I'm going to pull it back. There we are. Especially against this wall, we're going to have a little more of some depth back in there. Let's come back over here to this section. Now let's start adding some shadow. So behind this piece, I'm assuming it's going to start creating some shading areas. I'm going to start bringing it down and deeper. Some areas underneath here are going to get a little bit darker, especially when it's closer to against the wall. Get up against the wall, and I want to make sure that I'm targeting my proper color for that. So I'm just going to just give a little bit of an overlay. Okay. So especially down over in here, I'm going to make it a little richer. Back over here, a little bit richer. Now, let's add in some of the lighting. So I'm going to hit the X key. And let's see if some of these areas, like some of this, might pop out a little bit more. I'm not so sure about some of these, but let's go over ahead. And we're painting with that color. Okay. Just a quick little. We're painting with that color. Some of this brick, we can brighten it up. Start changing the nature, the lighting of the piece. And sometimes I hit that Alt click sometimes, so I'm going to go back and Alt while I'm in the brush tool and reselect my palette. And I can move my palette around. Let's go to my V key. And I can, let's make sure we're on the right layer, of course. Go to my palette layer. Right, I can move this stuff around. In fact, I might want to bring that to the very top. Okay. Bring it all the way to the very top. Above everything. Let's go get it again. Alright, bring that right above. There we go. I'm just going to move it around so I don't have to go hunting for it. It's pretty close. Alright, hit the B key, back to my brush. I can start. So you notice that when I'm laying down this highlights, it's adding on the color as well. It's not just brightening up, but it's brightening up with that color that I've chosen. Hit the X key for black, or not for black, but for the darker blue. Let's go and target that darker blue and start to probably bring in some of the shading. I want to make sure I'm in the right layer, right? There we go. A little more in there. Let's come back over to the other side. And a little more shaded detail in here. And I seem to be on the wrong layer. I'm going to go back I want to be right underneath that. That's this layer here. I want to make sure that I'm doing this correctly. And that's a mistake students will often make. It's making sure they're not in the right layer. Okay, there we go. I'm going to go back this up just a little bit. So it looks like I painted in that layer inappropriately. Back up a little more. There we go. All right. Now let's go to the right layer, which is this one right there. Good. Okay. It's looking pretty good. Hit the E key because I want to go to the eraser tool and take out some of that I spilled over up in here. Now, go back to my burn tool, or not burn tool, but my burn layer, burn and dodge layer, and apply some of this darker value. So I want to make sure that I'm also in the brush tool when I apply this. There we go. Give it a little bit of shading here. Bring it from the bottom. Okay. We're going to apply it to here. And I'm going to go inspect this side again. Okay. Give it some sense of shading falling on over here. We're just painting it in. Now, we got the shading. I'm going to do a little, just one quick little overlay. There we go. Now, hit the X key. Move this on over, out of the way. Bring this on down. If I want to bring a little more of that highlight from the lighting, just kind of paint over it a little bit. Go to the pipes, and we're painting over it with that particular color. Oops, let's go. Come back over and reselect. And do the same thing. So I want to get those pipes. There we go. Bring it on down. Maybe that lighting is falling just above that pipe there. So I'm going to add a little lighting so I can actually change the direction of the lighting here this way. Let's go up at the top here. Now we can start, paying attention to detail, making my brush a little smaller. Okay. And I can start to add little lighting changes right across these little poles. So that little attention to detail really, it will help your work. Make this a little bigger. Okay. And let's add a little more up in here. And a little more lighting. The edges of this building is probably going to get a little bit of hint of that, especially right across the tops of these edges. So what we're doing is we're re-establishing texture. Re-establishing lighting, which is going to give us a nice little, much better texture. Maybe some of these poles on the inside will brighten up just a little bit, and we pull it on back. We're kind of redefining the space. So before, after, before, and after. I'm thinking as this pole comes down here, this is going to be a lot darker. Hit the X key and start to paint that in with, yeah, that's going to, there we go. Give it some depth. Even down in here, give it a little more depth. All right, that's better. Same thing here. Looking pretty good. All right, so what about some of the cracks on the building on the outside? I like to do that a little separately or on a separate layer. It'll be a burn and dodge layer technique, so I'll go over here and do an overlay. And I'm going to use that foreground color or the brighter color, the color that we established. I'm gonna look at the cracks. I'm gonna look at the direction of the light. So the direction of the light's coming, as we can see, from the top right. So when it hits this, it's probably gonna hit these sides right along the left edge. So if I bring this down, kind of match the sides of the crack here, and start to paint, I want to paint that effect on top. Now, another way, what helps you with a stronger edge is go to the screen blend modes. Okay, let's go ahead and grab this. And I'm going to start to gently add. But to do so, I need to be above my building, right? So let's take this layer, drag it right above the building. There. Okay, now we can see it. So let's go ahead and hit my E key for the eraser tool. It's going to erase that away. Let's start over again. Hit the B key. And I'm going to start adding that highlight along this edge. Now, let's try something else. Let's actually, from a screen, let's go to overlay. And we can even start things off with overlay. And then we can go to screen with another layer if we like. So what I'm going to do is start adding some dimension to the highlights. So the light highlight's going to fall right across here. Give this right across. It's probably going to hit the top of this. Bring this on down. Since it's coming from the top portion, I want to honor the direction of that lighting. Bring it all across here. It's going to touch the bottom here, since it's coming from the top. And you're going to outline a lot of this. So you're just going to just a quick. Now the closer you get, the faster you'll be. So the lighting's falling right on the top, coming across, and you're just outlining the shape. So again, it's coming from this direction, therefore you're not going to see this side, but what you'll see is the lighting falling on this side. Your eye is going to pick that up with the sense that this is depth. Okay, I'm going to come over to here. Start adding a little sense of lighting along this edge. Right down here in the bottom. So you're going to hit all these little edges. We pull this back. And I'm going to go ahead and hit some of this right down over here. Bring it down. And here's one right on this side. So zoom in close when you're using your brush or your mouse. And you don't have to do all of the textures. Get to a point where it starts to look convincing. I might get a little bit of a lighting coming around this edge on the outside here. Okay. Go, kind of hitting around the outside. Before and after, before and after. So just explore this, come play with it. And now, as I started to talk about before, if we want a stronger effect, let's add a new layer, give that a screen blend mode. Because you can start things off with this lighting texture, and then you can make it more definitive with this. It's a little bit stronger. Okay. And more of a solid lighting edge right across here. All right, bring your opacity down as you see fit. And with the other layer as well. Okay, before and after. Go to the opacity, adjust it so it blends in a little bit more with the architecture. Okay. Now, that screen blend mode is going to be handy, because what I like to do is I'm going to make a brand new layer, go to our overlay, let's make this a little larger, and I'm thinking, let's go ahead and just paint a little bit of the lighting on there. So with the overlay blend mode, making sure that's on top of everything, put it right on top of the building. All right, I can start to just give a quick little wash of the highlight, and I'm just manually painting it in, playing around with the brush size. Okay, so it starts to establish the color of that lighting over everywhere. I suppose you can change the color of the building in your smart objects, but this way it gives you a sense of being able to control it locally and quickly turn it on and off according to your desire. So if I also go to filter menu, blur, Gaussian blur, just give a little bit of a blur so integrates with the object a little bit better. Zoom in close. And even for these shadow areas, if I just pull this down, and or if it's a little bit too strong, bring down this opacity. See, there we go. So the best of both worlds there. Now, let's go in here and start adding some fire and smoke effects, and to further enhance this. Now, make sure you watch the tutorial on making the fire and smoke brush. We're going to add that in next, and I'm going to show you how to apply some pretty cool little filter features in Photoshop that will allow you to do some custom-made fire.